Fatherland Videos. We have a gothic fantasy short story tonight by Black Sci-Fi Short Stories and Flame Tree Publishing. 4 by Timmy O. Introduction by Dr. Sandra M. Grayson. We're on page 38 and we're reading the short story called The Orb by Tara Campbell. Every time I stir the biomass, I feel lucky to have been chosen. The stir is flat and smooth, made of blonde wood. The biomass is thick and smells of overripe fruit. I look down into the buttery orange swirls in the bucket, and it amazes me that just a few months ago, I was helping a friend paint her nursery walls a similar color. But before her baby arrived, I was selected, and now I'm here making history. I walk across the dusty field to the wooden shed in our small corner of the estate, which is more like a compound, and my purse, my palm, to the scanner, one of the master's few concessions to modern technology. Electricity and running water seem almost out of place here. Everything else on the compound is rusted. The big farmhouse in which he lives, the bunkhouse where the assistants sleep, a couple of small cabins, one of which is crammed with materials, the other which I claim by myself virtue of being the first. This was fortunate turn of events, given that the sisters are in their 20s and I'm not. The air inside the shed is a sweeter, rottener version of the biomass. Although the fumes aren't harmful, the odor would overwhelm at length. I hold my breath against the stink of seaweed, the rot of fertility. The master doesn't want us wearing masks anymore. He doesn't want the orb to think it's unwelcome. We created it after all. I roll up my sleeves, then dip my hands into the bucket and slather the orb with biomass. We aren't supposed to use gloves for purposes of bonding. I enjoy the lushness of the substance, thick, smooth, slightly grainy, and the swell of the orb under my palms. Its surface is silky and taut, but pliable. There's muscle under there. From time to time, I feel it contract. I start with the orb sides and bottom, then climb onto a steep stool to reach the very top of it. By now, I can do this without soaking my apron and skirt. After I smooth the biomass into the last bit of its skin, I keep my hand in place. Waiting for something, another contraction. Sometimes, if I wait long enough, there's a rumble underneath my fingers, a purr. The orb continues to grow to the point where even with a step stool, we can't reach the top of it. One of the assistants suggests using a long-handled brush, but the master insists that the human touch is essential. He's ordered me to build a scaffold around the orb so we can reach all of it. Luckily, one of the assistants is a carpenter. I wouldn't know how to begin. I've had to ask for the assistants' help so many times. I'm not their leader, per se, but the master has developed a habit of giving all the orders through me, and through some twisted alchemy of misplaced guilt, the orders become favors the assistants are doing for me, adding to my account on some imaginary ledger. I don't get the feeling from Michael, the carpenter. He arrived with his girlfriend Sarah a month ago. Julian, however, he's been here twice as long, doing the bare minimum. and yet is jealous of anyone else the master notices and seems to appreciate. No matter that Julian's work is sloppy, such that I have to check his batches to make sure he's mixed the biomass properly, he's still angry at those of us who are doing well. He's sure to be picked when Michael invents some ingenious, articulated system that expands along with the growth of the orb. The master loves this sort of thing, praises, intricate, intervenes, admires the time and effort lavished on any sort of niche, analog, temporary measure. Soon Julian, Lucy, and I will finish the new structure for the orb. It's something of the master's design. It looks like a Qantas set, but we call it a hangar because he finds the former term too materialistic, even though it will involve destruction. He reminds us the great devouring is ultimately about peace. The orb is now over 10 feet in diameter, still in the old structure. We've expanded Michael's scaffolding as far as it will go, leaving only a small gap for us to slip through with our buckets between it and the wall. Even Julian, the tallest of us, can barely reach the top of the orb from the scaffolding, and the rest of us resort to sloppy biomass over the last bit we can get to. We'll have to take down the wall to get it out of the shed. But the new hangar isn't ready yet. It doesn't sit right. We tried to follow the master's instructions, but the frame is listed to the side, and we don't dare compound the problem by finishing it. Julian's complaining throughout has not only been demoralizing, but as it turns out, there may be some truth to it. The blueprints were more sketches than actual plans. The master is angry, of course, but as he says, he was wrong to expect a team of 9 builders to interpret his design correctly. That's why he's bringing a Hamish, a real builder. He's very busy, says the master, because he's qualified, and he will only be here long enough to build the hangar. The master warns us not, so speak with Hamish about the project, or if we must, tell him it's art. That's what the rest of us of the estate is for. After all, this 500-acre art colony with its ramshackle pavilions and gallery barns, its outdoor sculpture and scrap metal, whirling, spiraling in the wind, its massive rusted boot looming vast on the western horizon. The master has arranged for us to be in this little fenced-off area, courtesy of the absentee matron who owns the estate. She has a history of funding mysterious projects by mysterious male artists, demanding they surprise and delight her with the first viewing in exchange for absolute secrecy. Perhaps she likes the feeling of power, of creation. Perhaps she thinks it is giving her an edge of danger in her dotage. If she only knew. Hamish is here. The night before he arrived, Sarah complained to me that we shouldn't have extra people coming in and out, willy-nilly. She claimed to be concerned about having an outsider so close to the project, but I suspect she's more annoyed that the master didn't give Michael an opportunity to redesign the hut. I told her to have faith in the master's judgment, and she didn't say anything, but I could tell by her expression she was entirely satisfied. She wasn't entirely satisfied. I didn't dare admit to her that my main concern was losing my cabin for the new builder's lodging. Fortunately, the master had us clear out the second cabin for his use, and when Hamish arrived, I grasped the wisdom of decision, as he appears to be close to my age and similarly desiring and deserving of some privacy, especially someone like him, who seems the type that would draw other people toward him. Strong built, muscular from work, a clever designer's mind, a welcoming smile, and kind eyes. What, girl? See. What? What stinky butt? A clever design mind, a welcoming smile, and kind eyes. I could understand why he might need his own space to get away to. At any rate, Sarah hardly needs to worry that Hamish will see something he shouldn't, because he and the master spend all of their time together, conferring in the farmhouse, then coming out to stare at our shamefully tilted attempt while holding up drawings as wide as their arms can spread. We watch from a distance, the master's eyes warning us away, but I've caught a peek at the new drawings, which I assume the Hamishes do to their clean, straight lines. The master's updated the new hangar, added more scaffolding and thicker walls. I think about those drawings and marvel at how far we've come from the days of the earthen hut with the padlock and 1,000-gallon tank. Before I arrived, the master says, the orb was no more than a seashell, the perfection of the infinite designer, spiraling outward in the golden ratio. At first the shell was a small enough to fit in the palm of his hand, and looked laughably small in his 5-foot cube of fluid. Of course, I would never laugh at the orb. It was already up to my knees when I arrived, so I have to take the master's word for its modest beginnings. As it grew, he says, the spiraling of the shell disappeared, erased by the layer of pinkish matter accumulating on its surface. But shortly after I arrived, I witnessed to a wonder. The gelatinous matter developed a subtle formation of bulges spiraling from the top to the bottom on the sphere. This sense of memory, the intelligence, convinced me that I was a part of something truly life-altering, that I had been chosen to help build this new life, that the master and I would be architects of a new age. But then, it was just the two of us. Every day, he and I would add nutrients to the tank and take measurements. Temperature, salinity, alkalinity, ammonia. Temperature, salinity, alkalinity, ammonia, nitrate, phosphate, ionic strength, viscosity, and so on. As the orb grew, its surface morphed from a rosy ooze into something more substantive, condensing itself into something resembling the skin we know now. It hardly looked like something that would subvert the world order, but this was the stage of the master was waiting for, the indication that the orb was ready to come out of the tank. Now was the time, he said, for a new assistant to join us. Not an assistant, but a new assistant. I told myself of the twins. I felt was merely protectiveness of the project, and I was indeed wary of a new person joining our work. But the master assured me, he screamed Lucy, the same way he screened me. She found his art project online, another necessity, concession to modernity. Read deeply of his teachings, passed multiple interviews with him, agreed to travel here. The path to power, says the master, is strewn with the bodies of those who wanted to save the world. It is a golden staircase littered with the remains of those who tried and failed to protect vulnerable animals and ecosystems, to rescue the planet itself. He means the victim of corporate greed, environmentalists, journalists, protesters, activists. But as far as I'm concerned, these corpses include everyone in the world, all of our bodies rotting from poisoned water and filthy air and processed food. The orb will protect all of us by crushing the drills, poaching the poachers, strong-arming the strongmen, and bleeding out greedy CEOs, devouring the devourers, until human beings finally have to respect the power of the earth. The art is very real. When the master speaks, he doesn't share exactly how it will happen, but he has his reasons for keeping the knowledge itself safe. He has a plan, and it's not for us to question. Our calling is to care for the orb. The master will share the rest of his vision when it comes time. The morning Lucy arrived, and the master winched the orb out of the water and positioned it over a bedding of damp blankets. She didn't hesitate to reach up and help guide it, dripping to its nest. It would need frequent feedings and waterings now, said master. We were weaning it off the tank, toughening it. I volunteered for the first shift, advising Lucy to go and rest. The master offered to show her the project notes and help her get caught up. I don't like to recall how petty I felt, noticing how he placed a hand on the small of her back as he got her out of the hut. But Lucy has turned out to be trustworthy. Unlike me, she moved naturally in the clothing from the start. I yet to see her fidget with her bonnet, and she always used the apron for its actual purpose, rather than keeping it clean like a part of a costume she have had to return later. Knowing how reliable she is, I don't like to recall how during the first few weeks I listened after she bedded down for the evening, alert for any footsteps around her bunkhouse, any stirring inside. How I watched for any deviation in the master's path from the farmhouse to the hut protecting the orb. Lucy was never the problem. Hamish has come and built and left, though I can't say I wish for the last of those things, but there would have been no way to fully shield the orb as we transferred it. And no one uninitiated can see it yet. Michael devised a way to gently lift and transport the orb to its new hangar. At the same time, the master has screened the initiated, a new batch of assistants, bringing us up to the most, almost a dozen now. I'm grateful for the additional help with the orb's care, as well as with chores around the compound. The master has brought in chickens for eggs and cows for milk, and we've begun gardening and baking bread and minimized for the necessity for contact with the outside. He says his patrons were very supportive in their investment. Finding this all very mysterious and amusing, not realizing, of course, that we are also fortifying our compound to exist in the new world order we are ushering in. But this influx of people leaves me more uneasy than relieved. I observe the new trainees stirring their buckets of biomass. The buckets are metal now, as are the stirrers, and will required to wear elbow-high gloves and fully bodied aprons, men and women alike. The master has changed the formula. It's green now and runnier. It smells of rosemary and vinegar. When the biomass is ready, I lead everyone up a set of exterior steps to the rooftop, show them how to pour their buckets into the chute, explain how this chute will bathe the orb and the nutrients it needs to grow, tell them their contributions are much appreciated. The new trainees, however, have never seen the orb, let alone touched it. The master says this physical closeness is no longer necessary because we are biologically engineered into the orb. He once admitted to me how surprised he was that the HeLa cells were so readily available, even for artistic endeavors, which allows him to describe his work this way. The orb is already enough like us, of us, for the connection he wanted to create. Early touch, he says, was sufficient to activate a sense of empathy and a structural bond with those of us who mean it well, like we'll protect light. Now we are supposed to treat it with respect, which doesn't include touch anymore, at least not of the orb. After the last trainee empties her bucket, I show them all how to clean up the equipment and send them off on their next assignments. This is where the genders separate again. Some of the women cooking and cleaning in the farmhouse with Lucy, others gardening with Sarah, the few men fixing things around the compound under Michael's guidance, Julian monitoring the orb's development and fuming under my supervision. It's clear to everyone, even the master, that he would rather have a team of his own. Add to that sting that the Michael and Sarah were given permission to move into the cabin after Hamish's departure. I walk back out of the hangar and palm the scanner to unlock it. Everyone except the master, Julian, and I have been programmed out. Inside, the air is fragrant. The sickly rot of the previous shed has given way to something fresh and green in the field after rain. The orb is still slick with the dull gleam of biomass, still feeding. I climb the newer, bigger scaffold so I won't have to crane my neck to look up into its swelling form. I walk around the catwalk around its perimeter where only those of us who have been here since the beginning are allowed to tread. Up close, I could hear it growing, crinkling with a tiny, wet snick. Life before the orb seems so distant now. It's been a week since anyone had seen Julian. The last time I saw him, I was on my way out of the hangar. I stopped. It's not that I'm done something wrong, but I didn't have a particular reason for being with the orb just then. It was night, and I wasn't sure if he'd seen me. I hurried around the corner out of sight. My first thought was to go to my cabin and forget it, but I couldn't. Julian had been stirring things up recently, disgruntled by Michael's increasing prominence, accusing the master of being attached to certain new trainees. Although I have to admit, it does seem that the master has taken a special interest in the new recruits. I only got a few steps before I turned back to see what Julian was up to himself, sneaking around at night. Perhaps I was paranoid, but when I saw that he was heading toward the master's farmhouse, I was alarmed. What if he had seen me just then? What if he had seen me all those other times visiting the orb when I wasn't supposed to? I followed him at the distance, and by the time I reached the farmhouse, the master already let him inside. Standing in the shadows outside, I couldn't hear a thing in particular, just muffled voices rising and falling. After 7 minutes, The voices got louder and footsteps pounded on the floorboards. I ducked around the corner of the farmhouse, and from there, I heard the front desk creak open. 2 seats of shoes clop across the porch and down the front steps. "Let me show you, Julian," I heard the master say. "You deserve to see." That was a week ago, and no one has seen him since. Man is the apex predator. We all knew this before Master told us. It's why we came. We're here to balance the scales, to create another life form that can mitigate our dominion over all life on the planet for the good of the earth. We're here to create something more powerful and more durable than humans and all of our technology, something to keep us in check. The orb shares a genetic material. It will have a deep knowledge of us that we stem cell knows how to build itself into skin or muscle, blood or bone. It will know what we need, our weakness, how to kill us, and I believe it will share our instinct to save itself above all of other forms of life. But it had been done, just like the Master tells us, other systems for mitigating human control, earthquakes, floods, disease, drought, crop infestation, were random and untargeted. Nature doesn't care who it kills, and oligarchs have that means to avoid these plagues. Stockpiles of food and supplies in undisclosed locations, private planes to escape, hire guards for protection, and piles of money to keep the loyal. As long as these same corrupt figures remain in charge of man-made system, they will continue to be destructive. But I've been thinking, what if it's not just specific people that are to blame? What if human nature is to blame? A massing of resources lead to the fear of losing them, which leads to the amassing of more resources to prevent losing the original resources. I get that. Coming here, it broke me out of the perilous cycle myself. So maybe it isn't certain individuals that need to be eliminated by an entire flawed species that needs to be put in check. There has to be a counterpoint to our absolute power, doesn't there? The Master believes we can teach the orb how to target. He and I might simply have different ideas of how wide the net needs to be. Either way, we needed to create something more powerful than us, something we couldn't kill. It was the only way. Last night, I saw the orb give birth. It was in the hangar. I was concerned for the orb because even these few weeks after the move, it already beginning to outgrow its new environment. The Master says we don't have enough funding to expand the structure, so we're creating space in another direction, excavating into the ground instead of starting right away. As I thought he should, the Master wasted days on additional training and an oath-taking ceremony before allowing the newest recruits to enter the hangar and see her. Hey, Stinky. The work has been slow, with pickaxes to break through concrete floors, shovels to clear away rock, dirt. I fear we're not moving quickly enough, but the Master doesn't want to upset the orb with the noise and exhaust of more powerful tools. We've got to dig deep and wide, far enough so she won't roll in by accident, but close enough that we can gently tip her in when her new nest is complete. Ready to go to bed, baby? Come on. Let's go to bed. Come on. Come on. back at it. Let me see where we leave off at. I need to stop calling it she. The master says that sloppy anthropomorphizing. Last night, I come into the hangar to massage the orb with oil to soothe its skin during the rapid expansion. Its skin is so soft and fragrant, as always, but it's began sleeping and milking substance. But it's begun seeping a milky substance. The master sees it, of course, but he hasn't told us what, if anything, to do about it. The oils are made, and all I can do is think of and point it. It had been 3 days since I've been able to apply any. I don't have any luxury of a special blend. I just have to take what I could sneak out of the kitchen. I've been varying my schedule and keeping the main lights off to avoid attracting attention. Master has changed the orb schedule to include times when it must not be disturbed, mimicking our sleep patterns. During these times, the lights are kept at low, the golden glow to provide a comforting environment for rest. I don't think the master believes that the orb actually sleeps. This is merely his way of continuing its training in our ways. I rocked around the orb, running my fingers lightly over its skin to check for lesions. I don't know if the orb can feel pain. Fat boy, go, sit down. Sit down. Get over here. Go over here and sit down. Come on. I don't think the master believes that the orb actually sleeps. This merely his way of continuing its training in our ways. I walked around the orb, running my fingers lightly over its skin to check for lesions. I don't know if the orb can feel pain, but her skin is so taut, I can only imagine she does. Another thing that doesn't seem to concern the master. Now we are not only discouraged from touching her, it's forbidden. I'm not sure how he imagines this is tipping in will work. I hadn't even completed a circuit around the orb when she began to shoulder. The milky fluid rose to the surface of her skin, crested in a cloudy, glistening slick. This time, however, the liquid didn't simply run down the sides and drip to the floor. It cold scud, growing thicker until I spotted a bulge high on her side. It must have begun as the very not your turn yet, baby. Too little. Still, for the moment, the master excludes relaxation. He has solved more than one problem. One of the new trainees has been sent away. There's been no announcement, but we hear the new master's judgment. We hear the master's judgment in whispers and second-hand snippets. She wasn't careful enough, and that kind of carelessness wouldn't do around the orb. She, the trainee, was beginning to show. Some of us wonder in whispers who the father is, what will happen to him. But this all theater meant to no signal innocence. We all know nothing will happen to the father. Another night of discharge, another dash to the hangar, another baby orb is coming. The process goes more smoothly this time. The orb, a practiced mother. This baby orb is more confident in perambulations, traveling the room in fluid acres. This time, there is no hole for the baby to sink into. It has been taken over by the bulk of the orb. I open the door and let the offspring out into the night. The afterbirth comes more quickly now as well. Another skull, more bones, another skeleton spurt. No ring this time. The trainee who was sent away wore no rings. But the absence of proof is not proof. This time, I want to leave the bones. I want someone else to find them, but aside from Julian, whose palm no longer exists, the only ones with access are the master and me. I think about hauling the bones outside and leaving them there. I want for there to be repercussions, but on the other hand, I can't bear the thought that there might not be any, that this might be accepted as just punishment for the carelessness the master accused her of, that he would surely be excused, even vindicated by her death. But once again, I must consider what might happen to the orb. I cannot betray her. We created her, and she's a mother after all. As I load the bones into the wheelbarrow, I must also admit that I enjoy the power a secret creates. I know are two of the most powerful words on earth. I roll the bones to the same far corner of the estate. The others have long since disappeared. I tip the new remains out into the same spot, throwing away the proof of one's secret is a small price to keep another. He thinks we'll never tell. Somehow he thinks we won't even remember any of this because he has taken away all our computers, all papers and pens, all sticks. But I will remember it. It will not be not forgetting, because I'm whispering it to the trees and thrumming it at bees as they buzz by. I'm writing it into the air with my fingers. At night I bend down and mumble it into the earth. Why was he so certain the orb would know the difference between our enemies and us? We tried. That was the idea behind touching the orb. Didn't it feel our intention? Surely, he thought, it would remember those who wanted it to thrive, and surely it would recognize that we were different from those in power who threatened it, destroyed its environment. We wanted to create a way to fight back. Was it the Master Sutton direct against touch that was flawed, or was it the original plan? We were doomed from the start. All of us is to say that the orb has disappeared, not by some magic proof into that thin air. There are signs, streaks, and gelatinous matter between the seams of the wall, the cracks in the floor, the slats of the roof, as though it exploded outward in all directions all at once. The master is angry at everyone, least of all himself, which is we've all come to expect, but of course cannot say. Everyone thinks the orb has failed, that we've lost it, that we'll have to start again, but I don't believe this is true. Every few nights since the orb has disappeared, a worker has gone missing. The master accuses them of cowardice, of running away to escape his wrath. I might agree, except each time it happens, I wake with some sympathetic discharge of another birth. I've taken to linen lining the underwear with rags. And the spot where I twice took my wheelbarrow is now gathering bones without me. My little pile has become an altar. The orbit's preparing the earth just as we planned. We just don't know what for. Michael and Sarah are packing their belongings. It's down to 4 of us now. The 2 of them, the master and me, up until the moment of their departure. They asked me to come with them, but I merely wished them well as they walked the path to the main road. The chickens clucked and scratched for the food in their dusty wait. The bone altar grows. Eggs are a fine and fitting meal, if not a bit monotonous. I've kept up a little vegetable plot of my own, and there are nuts and berries to forage. But it's alright because there's only myself to feed. I haven't seen Master in weeks now, and I find I'm not that hungry anyway. Now I'm the one who goes for solitary walks, not hoping to meet the Master I initially served, but seeking the new one, seeking her. I walk and I search for her in a fragrant of bone, in a vicious slick of blade of grass, in a whiff of sweetness on the breeze. I want to place my hand on her skin and know she still recognizes me. I want to know how many children she's delivered, if she will bear my presence in peace, or if she will consume me. I search for her, but I also want to believe she's not searching for me, that she's looking instead for the destroyers of the earth, her enemies, her destiny. I want to believe she would sense the cloudy wetness we still share. But if not, if she did not consider me her enemy, would I dissolve away into nothing, extruded into a pile of bones in the wilderness, never to be found or mourned by another soul? Or would I become one of them, an orb, one of her, one with her? And I still search for her, and still am left to wonder, will she someday circle back to find me? Will I ever know what it is to dissolve all the evils of mankind and slip away down into the dirt, an avenging angel of the earth?